who the hell is this person stand up talk about this stuff that would be familiar or not familiar, and what's your purpose, but what's your background. So I'm trying to feel that, but also it can make content. So respect to anyone that asks that question, are you undercover? Respect to you for asking that, a straight up question, a straight up answer, but I'm trying to treat it. So I went to like I had a where I went to high school, you had a great program. Very homeroom teacher was a music teacher. He was like a producer from a real life producer from the 70s who was in education, and he taught us some great things about analog and like some of the older iterations of Pro Tools back then, and a little bit of basics about music. And that actually that impacted my life, because right now I still do music, and it's not different than that. My inspiration for my very first class, he was my homeroom teacher, but also my first period of ninth grade was audio rec, with the just to shout the man out, his name had been Red, the Red of Renown in Minnesota. He was he was a he was a dope producer like that. And I actually had some beats. I was making some beats in his class, and the upperclassmen, some of not far away from this group I'm about to reference, I got a little bit of clout with them because they were rocking with a beat I made. Red gave me a little bit of help on that beat. Like he liked the beat too that I was making, and he had a little bit of 2 cents to say about my beat. But you could say that's still a collaboration. And between me and Red, the actual upperclassmen, they didn't even say nothing to me about the beat. I didn't know they liked the beat, but I had a keyboard that could beats, and I showed some beats to my close friends, and like there's a certain look that come over people's face when they're like not that I look more jealous when I did that, but they'd be like where they really they're clicking they're it's speaking to them at that point. And just that reaction in Red's class, and then with my friends later, because my friends were like they're always trying to break my this and that. My friends were, because they're a little bit older, but they couldn't help. You can't argue with who someone is. And I had been about music my whole life, so I had some traction with that. But this that school I had, it was great for music, even like the early iterations of like beat making and stuff like that. My very high school, my very homeroom, my very first period. But there's a group that I went to that was just before they came up just before me. They were called I knew them as Verbal Tactics, but I met someone here recently who was from that generation in that school, and he said their other name. They had a name. I can't think of what it was, but they were like a peer of the group Atmosphere. So if you're hearing this, you might know the group Atmosphere from Minnesota. They were like a real verbal. They were some great lyricists with some like some deep content. They would be similar to like there was a peer of theirs, what's his name, dang, I can't remember his name. You had Verbal Tactics. You had what was that other group? I'm trying to think of your real actual righteous but cold lyricists. What was their name? You had damn, my bad. You had a couple people that would have like some really deep like conscious, like your first iterations of conscious rap. But Verbal Tactics, they weren't necessarily conscious, but not conscious. They were just some dope. They were some real actual gifted MCs, and I seen one of them at a church. Like I was at a black, not the church that I grew up at, but another historical church that goes almost all the way back to the time of the Underground Railroad in Rondo. I'm referring to Pilgrim Baptist in St. Paul. And I seen one of the brothers from Verbal Tactics in there, and he was at a service. He was at a church service in front of a congregation, and they asked him to improvise a freestyle. So he's in front of a church congregation, and people are giving him random words, and he's riffing on those words that he couldn't have prepared for, like savvy, without affronting or without dishonoring a church, a congregation. How cold of a lyricist he was. He wasn't a religious rapper, but he was just an actual MC that could step up to a church congregation and flow in front of a church congregation without and stick his foot in his mouth without sticking his foot in his mouth in front of the people and in front of our maker. How cold he was. But when they do things like that, like stand around in a group like that, I'm not saying that started necessarily with hip hop or New York, but some of the aesthetic of that, in the vein of that, of like coming of having knowledge on the top of your head, and sharing knowledge in a cipher, whether you're rhyming or not. That's part of the nation of gods and earths in New York City. That's prior to and attendant of like the civil rights movement, and they were led by someone named Clarence 13X. He was but the reason I reference him is that he believed that the black that man that mankind, but also the black man, is the closest representative, but also that too, the greatest in this life. According in India, they say that so in India, right? If you mess up around a higher power, you can be that can be staved off or healed or atoned for by a guru, because a guru is possessed of true worship, and when you worship something, you're one and the same with what you worship. So we go to church and we worship, right? Worship is worshipful, but if you worship long enough, the objective of worship is to become that which you are worshiping. So when you become that which you are worshiping, do you become the greatest? Do you become omni anything, or do you become omni worshipful? So is the greatest in this life a dictator, or is it the greatest in this life yet worshipful? Think about like how subtle insects are, right? Or like the actual the care that say you were to injure your body, right? Heaven forbid. Like recently, I've had different scrapes on my foot because I wore more sandals. This life is so subtle and gentle when it's operating, is that it would mend your body as you couldn't perceive, as you would pray for, but you couldn't perceive or ask for, better than you could ask for. This life will heal your body. Such will also insects tend and mend and care for an environment and ecosystem. All the things that we experience in life, they come from the earth and its ecosystems that are viable, not least of which because of the finest and subtlest of insects that you can appreciate, and even bacteria and even virus that you can't appreciate. They are that subtle and gentle, but they're also making you viable because you have things like probiotics, that's like bacteria that helps you, and you wouldn't be viable without both like bacteria and probiotics. That buoyancy makes life possible, but it's that subtle and gentle. When this life is being that subtle and gentle, is it not worshipful? So it's like, imagine like you're coming into a situation, right? Like you're the reinforcements, right? So you're getting onto the point of enlightenment. You're getting to the highest lesson. You're becoming viable. When are you more viable than when you're helpful? What are you doing? What more value are you to someone greater than you than as you can help them, right? With their purposes, right? Because they're already after the greatest thing, that's life, right? So you get on to the point of enlightenment, the highest attainment, realizing the essence of worship, right? But worship is some mean stuff, right? That you have to humble, you have to get low for worship, right? Because we're doing this many reps, but if we're worshipful about it, we're getting low, right? So you get all the way up to becoming that with your worshiping, like that which you're worshiping. That is, you get to the trenches, the reinforcement, the refreshments to the trenches. You're like, hey man, we're the trenches. We just got you. Like, hey man, get your ass down, man. Get down, man. That's just right over there, man. Don't you see that shit? So you meet the greatest. You're in the trenches now, right? But the greatest is like, oh, shit. So you get onto the greatest, and you gotta get little like that, because this thing is about worship, not being worshipped. It's about worship. So the greatest in this life is worshipful, and when we get to the greatest point of worship, we become worshipful, not worshipped, worshipful. Worship and worshipness is as great, if not greater, than what's worshipped, and what's so. So what I'm saying is that a guru, a guru can can prevent calamity even when we fall outside of grace, because a guru has attained to being worshipful. But if we fall out of favor with a guru, even what we worship may not be appeased until the guru is appeased, because the guru is the closest and seamless in sameness and oneness with what is being worshipful, which is worshipfulness. So if you affront a guru, you affronted worshipfulness, and worshipfulness is also worshipfulness in what is worshipped. And so that's about the greatest a man can be or be impacted by or be in front of, is someone that's worshipful. But along that lines is that, according to Clarence 13X, is that a man, and a genuine man, a human being, is possessed to a different degree of all that constitutes this reality, and is as equally great, profound, and sentient as this life itself, to scale. And so that's what the Nation of Gods and Earths is about. But a lot of the aesthetics of hip hop, it comes from them, and they're because they would quiz each other and drill each other and proselytize similar, not the same as the not exactly the same as the missionaries, because the missionaries are more so making you to conform to the status quo, and they're not outside of the status quo, but they're having you adopt deeper and conform deeper. The missionaries are, because you were already raised not far away from the church and its edicts and what it would have for you. So the missionaries are bringing you on back closer to conformer. They're making things stricter for you. A missionary is. But the people like the gods and earth, they're proselytizing, but they're more so understanding themselves to break you away from the status quo, as whatever about the status quo would not be forthright in their understanding. So it's like a different form of missionary, but all things have like a counterpart. But their objective is different and their means are different. But I'm sorry, the objective might be the same, because peace, love, and truth. All people are more so after peace, love, and truth, but their means and their values and their ethics and their modes of dealing are different. But I'm saying is that the nation of gods and earths had been founded by Clarence 13X, and it was reminiscent of and not very far away from the Nation of Islam. It's appreciated that the only thing that has convincingly produced real change, that would when a person goes to jail and they go back, that's called recidivism. But not only jails, but a lot of lifestyles have recidivism. Like alcohol has recidivism, bars have recidivism, a lot of things that are detriments, but also the lifestyles and the people that would congregate around that, and also institutions themselves, even schools themselves, as they're overly priced and sometimes don't serve people by taking away people's initiative. They all have recidivism that's not exactly beneficial. But the organization that's been the most convincing and winningest about preventing recidivism and creating real fundamental change in human beings while incarcerated and not, is appreciated as the Nation of Islam. And I think that sometimes when settings, like I met real saints that had reformed in the Christian church from rough backgrounds, street backgrounds, but I think that some of what worked for them and what they read into Christianity, they had actually been emulating Islam, and some of the ministers in the Christian church that were the most effective at winning, as they say, winning souls, reforming and creating saints. Some of them were actually trained around the Nation of Islam. Like there was a minister. When I was young, when I was saved, in early high school around the year 2002, when I chose to engage the Black church as a child. I was nervous to take communion, because I thought that they said you could go to hell if you weren't sincere, and I didn't know if I was sincere or not. But I went to the deacon like that. I talked to the deacon before I took communion. Sometimes when kids have doubts about things, they're way more honest with their doubts than adults are with the things that they're confident in. So I would imagine that the greatest in this life might appreciate a child that would be hesitant to take communion if the child was that honest to choose to go to church, but also hesitate about communion. Because if the child honest, there's also beautiful girls here and other things that interest a person, but you're also still interested. I was more so interested in the struggle and the plight and the beauty of the Black culture than church per se, and African culture as it existed in the church, than the dogma per se. But I still engaged the dogma a little bit. And the deacon said that he actually gave me a real mustard seed. He had like a little canister, and he said, if you have faith the size of this mustard seed, it says right here that you can move a mountain. And I grew up in front of like a real mountain outside my window, so that meant a lot to me. But he had been from the Nation of Islam, is where he was trained from, and he actually won me over. I wouldn't be the man I am now, or have the experiences that I have now, and also that I had in the church before that, without that deacon. And he had been from the Nation of Islam. I'm not saying I was a real tough guy, but I was a vulnerable, and I was extended marginal person, and I could have really ruined my life just by trying to be cool and trying to seem cool. I probably wouldn't have been cool being a jackass, but I was trying to seem cool, and I could have had any horrible outcome like that if I hadn't met that man. But he had been from the Nation of Islam. What I'm saying is that a lot of the strongest people around things like the Nation of Islam, and some of your members of the Nation of Islam, and then Clarence 13X, who was an offshoot of that, they actually had a military background, because Clarence 13X was in Korea. And I think that some of the leaders of like some of the original gangs in California, like the African American gangs, and maybe some of the other ones, I'd imagine like some of the other ethnicities, they had the people that would organize them and prompt them. They had military background. A lot of them did. Like they a lot. If you look at how a lot of real gangs were founded, some of the people that founded them, they had training around being organized around things. Before they would organize a gang, they were in the some of the original gangs, the actual military. And so I'm saying that from that standpoint, California, I'm just showing the history of how California has a lot to do, like a lot of gang culture, the country and world over. It has a lot to do with California, but also it has to do with the give and take and buoyancy and pushback of the presence of the military in California, going all the way back to the like World War I, World War II, but probably before that, as the military would have been up against the native warriors in the whole country, including California. But then that too, in the 20th century, you would have some of the actual like you would say like maybe renegade or like Ronin military member, like some of those people like Clarence 13X. I don't know what the actual circumstance of his discharge is, whether it's honorable or not, but some of the way that he thinks being outside the military and him being had been the same person inside the military, you could extrapolate that he might have at one point to some degree been an actual Ronin or a renegade, or at least thought like one. And so his manner of discharge, it might have replicated that or not, but that he would be that trained and had seen that because some things you can't do unless you've seen them done. So you've seen how the military can organize and be disciplined and be effective in different outcomes, but you also maintain enough of your identity or your purposes of serving the people. The military more so serves the status quo, the state, and then the people. But some of these people who are renegade, they serve the state, and I mean the people first. But they had been trained by the state, is what I'm saying. And so, if you take California from that standpoint, a lot of the people that would have been founding a lot of the gangs, they're not far away from either being from the military or going up against the military, as even the actual the military that's on R&R. You didn't think that R&R could be about fighting, but if they're in these venues like that and they're letting it all hang out like that, and they're also womenizing and probably doing alcohol, if not other stuff, they're still part of the lifestyle or not away from it, but they're also part of the military. So I'm saying that back and forth, that feedback, but also that sharing of notes, because you become like who you fight, and you also learn things from who you fight. So I'm saying that's some of the background of California that impacts the whole country and the whole world. But that too, the law enforcement in California, they would have been impacted and had a similar way of doing things as the police officers in New York, because the police officers in New York were the original police officers for the whole country. But you can imagine that those police officers in New York, they would have been very sophisticated and savvy to be effective. Because who do you know? Like there's a song by Big L. To if you had another misgiving about my background, would I be missing like who? I'm just saying. I said I was about hip hop and I know who Big L is. So Big L, and I was bumping him at that time like 2000, way back in the day. But Big L was like he said something like uh he said something about this the Harlem makes the smoothest brothers on earth come from Harlem. There's nobody smoother than somebody that comes from Harlem. That's what Big L said, and I wouldn't argue that. I'm not saying that, but I wouldn't argue that there's anyone smoother than a brother from Harlem. Like you have if you ever seen the show Everyday Struggle, there's a personality in there who is from the music industry named Wayno. I think he's from New York. I mean, from Harlem. He got some of my swag, some of my clothing moves. It came from just seeing Wayno, not to copy him, but just like, damn, man, that brother's about style and he ain't ashamed about it. He be busting out them style. Like, I love the show Everyday Struggle because you seen the beautiful Nadeska, and like academics had like a lot of interesting things to say, whether you agree with him or not. And I like academics that he would stand up for his positions against a lot of people, as it was in favor or not. You can learn a lot from him. Like he recently had a video I saw where he was saying that, hey man, he was saying that it actually means something to contend and offer contributions in an arena of ideas, for the sake of ideas. He was actually making a pro intellectual position, and that's very rare. You don't see a lot of people that take a pro-intellectual stance of anything publicly, and he did so. But also, he has a pedigree and background around hip hop, the hip hop industry, and also he has a long a track record online of making a lot of statements and standing by them, and that's something of an intellectual. So I just wanted to point that out. Um, uh, um, but but Wayno, he would be making them all look bad though, like because academics, he would be dressing on Wayno would be he would be stunting on the actual popular hip hop artists like in the last 5 7 years that would be on that show or more. And then the co-host, he would make them all just look bad, man. He made himself yesterday look bad. How good he looked today. Wayno would be like that, and he's from Harlem, so that's probably true. And I took like a lot of people give me props on my style. They don't be like they don't I don't look like much of anyone except for maybe people that would do colors with their hair and stuff like that. Other than that, I don't look like a lot of people. But if I took game from anyone, it would be Wayno on Everyday Struggle, and he was a Harlem brother like that. I'm not sure if you say Harlem Cat, but he was like a Harlem brother like that. But that's what Big L said back in the day. But what I'm saying is that if you were a police officer around Harlem or anywhere in New York, then or going way back, you would have to be slicker than hell. You had to be set. And actually, there was a police officer. I can't think of his name, but I saw a video about him. Whenever so in the last like 20 or 30 years, the entire country over, the United States, anytime that you had a homicide investigation in the United States at all, there was a man from New York City that one is that he wrote the game plan and he actually conceived the tactics just by engaging a library. He it was just an interest of his. And I said according to Nassim Nicholas Taleb is that you only get on from somewhere when you tinker with it and when you have a genuine interest in it, such as that you keep engaging it, not always with a clear objective, but just because you have a hunch about it. So that had been this man's passion is that he was passionate about that wicked stuff, but also to prosecute it on the side of justice. So if he actually kept someone safe, or he kept someone from if he kept someone safe from out of harm's way, based on what he did for justice, and he wasn't also unethical, then I say salute that man. But a lot of the entire game plan and whatever people are trained with as detectives, it comes from this very man from New York City, is what I'm saying. And also, any pivotal, I think he had to do with some of the assassinations of your famous people, like I was referencing, and so any significant homicide in the whole country, he would have weighed in on that, but people wouldn't have been known that he was the one weighing in on it. But also, he wrote the book about it. But also, he was from New York City, and I'm saying that it's not unseeming or unlikely or uncommon that the police officers in New York City, of all places, would have been the slick ass police officers because they're right on there where you just have a need for in a demand for people to be slick as hell. Because how do you survive around a place with that much talent, New York City, but also that tough of a place and that brilliant of a place, that beautiful place? How do you survive there without being slick as hell? But then also, how do you keep things how to keep people paying bills like that other than to be slick. So I'm saying that real police work is some slick ass shit, and it skirts the line of what street and what state sanction, so that the very person that the film train, because the Training Day, that's a deep film, and the way that Training Day can resonate with people, there would have to be a real story because you can't fathom fiction away from real life. According to Marlon Brando, real life degree involves a degree of acting. So even me making these videos, even people in their regular life, you're always acting a little bit. So you could say real life, even real stories, true to life, it has a little bit of fiction in there. But then also you can't conceive of certain ideas in fiction without a reference and without real life. So there's something of reality in fiction and fiction in reality. But that movie Training Day, the way that it's so compelling like that is that it would have to be part of the real human experience why it's speaking to you like that. And there had been a real man like that in LA. But however actually savvy but LA, even New York is savvy and dangerous more than people know. It could be in the past, certain parts of it, but so too is California, like almost like a counterpart. But the actual, so I'm saying is that how sophisticated, but also formidable, and how much of a pedigree and background the gangs of California also had been and still are. The only way that a person could effectively do any justice to that or around that, I'm not saying that that man that Training Day is replicated off was just, but the only way that he could be effective in prosecuting anyone and making repercussions for anyone is that he had to be very slick and a little bit it'd be a little bit questionable, was he actually a good guy or a bad guy, just like the real movie Training Day. But the movie Training Day was designed for profit. It was a script that was written to achieve profit. So some of the interplay in the dialogue, in the some of the notions of Training Day, it still has to be reined in by Hollywood and viable commercially. So you could say that even though they were reaching for some real themes in there, they were showing you what it looks like for someone to get you in their pocket by compromising you, first taking you in confidence, a con man. So um, uh, um, Denzel Washington in Training Day was a con man, that is a confidence man who was also a police officer, who was also a confidence man. But the actual man that he replicated that off was also a confidence man. He likely would have been very confident, and he likely would have succeeded by getting people in his pocket on either side of the law based on confidence, and then doing what he would do with them as he had the confidence to do so. That is the leverage based on the graces and the social graces and the intelligence. So I'm saying is that real. That's what real police work is. I'm saying is that it's as slick and mean and dirty as anything else like that. But but also it's appreciated that whoever assassinated Biggie Smalls, I think they were running with that guy, or they were not far away from that guy, and they were also more so with the police. So they're now prosecuting how and who assassinated Tupac Shakur, but I don't know that the assassination of Biggie Smalls had been prosecuted, or that it maybe can be, because I think it had to do with some of these police officers, how they were savvy and sophisticated enough to catch up with Biggie Smalls, is that it would represent something of like maybe not only an inside job with inside intelligence, but also actual trained police officers that would be formidable, but also savvy enough to do that. And so I'm saying that it's interesting that one is that New York City is the seat of some of the most sophisticated police tactics and work in terms of detectives now, but then also a lot of police work itself the country over for the last few hundred years, according to Tasha Bay, is replicated off and based off the gangs of New York, that is the police and the gangs, but also the police of New York going hundreds of years back. But also that too is that the hip hop police, the part of the police that are specifically assigned, that are part of hip hop, or that prosecute what's called justice based on the ramifications of hip hop lifestyles and artists and probably social media activity, they too are from New York. That too, where Biggie Smalls was assassinated. And Biggie Smalls, he may have been, I'm extrapolating, I'm conjecturing, Biggie Smalls may have been the first victim or assailant or subject or client, so to speak, of the hip hop police. I'm extrapolating that. But I'm saying that, but as far as I go, is I understand that that's what it takes to be on any side of anything, is that it's some mean ass shit and it's dishonest like that. I but that too is that I stand where do you stand? What are you about? Where do you stand? I say that what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And it takes all kinds to make a world. And it takes some of those people on both sides of anything to make a world. And that's what Training Day really showed you. Training Day showed you a lot about life. There can be blessings and redemptions and silver linings and misdoing and wrong both in, because you see in the movie Training Day, the street people, you see them doing things that are unethical, to unalive someone's for money, like that is to off someone, assassinate someone on commissioning strictly for money, even as that person's otherwise decent and you know that person's decent. That's wrong. But then also they were, there's at different times where you see street people in that film that can be very redeeming, and also they have a conscience and a heart and an idea about this. And that's where we actually see the big picture. You see a lot of the big picture in the film Training Day. I was very young. I was yet sneaking into that movie, when I watched the movie Snake Training Day, I was actually technically I was a minor, mind you, I was a kid back then, but I was technically breaching ethics to watch the movie Training Day when I saw it. But it spoke to life. But you see something of the real pictures that life is really a drama and it's a theater, and we're all on some different side, and we have to, because we have to go. We, like the day about to start, we have to do something, constructive or not. We have to do something. We can do anything we want, but we can't do nothing. So we have to get it how we live somehow. And a lot of game, it's a rat race, it's a money game, a bloody money game, and it's zero sum, it's winner take all, it's kill or be killed, it's dog eat dog, which you have some blessings in there. So where do you align in something? Where do you draw the line? Where does the buck stop with you? For me, it's about don't spill blood. Don't put another person in a position you don't want to be in. Don't put yourself in a position you don't want to be in, and don't lie. So from that standpoint, I thought that I think that I think justice is better than victimizing someone. But also I know that both law people and street people can victimize people, and law people and street people can do justice. But both law people and street people, they have to lie. They really do. Cause I watched, there's like another, like to the other side of it, there's a rapper named Waka Flocka. Like I've been a hip hop head most of my life, right? Most of my life, like since NWA, since the '90s, since I was about like, I've been really jacking with hip hop at least since. Let me see. So I had some friends that were older than me. They were like some Hispanic. A lot of my friends were either Native or Hispanic when I was little, and they gave me. I was bumping the Menace to Society soundtrack since 1994, Above the Rim soundtrack since 1994, uh, Naughty by Nature before that, Crisscross before that, Ice Cube before that. Probably the first real hip hop, the first hardcore hip hop I got my hands on would have been an Ice Cube tape, and that would have been about like 92, 93 at the latest, 92. I was yet less than 7 years old then, and I never stopped that. The only time I ever stopped that, someone asked me the other day, "Hey man, do you know anything about DMX? Did you listen to DMX?" DMX is the only hip hop artist that I didn't all the way mess with, but one of my favorite song of all time. If you had to ask me the song that says the most about my life in general from hip hop is actually a DMX song. All I Want Is You. Does anyone know that song? All I want is you. All I want is going down. If it's on to a song, then I got to know now. Is you with me or what? Tell me, that's DMX like that. That's what me and my friends were about. My friend was a hip hop head, and I was. My friend was visually. My friend was disabled. He was visually compromised, but he was actually the strongest person I ever know physically, and a brilliant bike rider. He taught me how to ride bicycles, and then I was a pretty sturdy motorcycle. I can't do your motocross stuff, but just getting a damn Harley up and down the highway at speeds that scare people and stuff like that, I'm good to go like that because my friend taught me that, how to be confident about life and how to get reads on people and stuff like that. But in situations, but we would be really bumping that song a lot because we were we were true friends. But that song, it kind of it summarizes the vibes that we were on. Me and him were on that song, but I wasn't really a DMX song fan because my whole life I was hip hop. But by the time I got to seventh grade, I went to a skater phase, and that's when DMX came out. So he would have like these hardcore songs that everybody was jacking with, but I was more so on alternative then, so I didn't catch on with him. But then in the beginning of eighth grade, that song "Back That Us Up" by Cash Money came out, and that got me back on the hip hop. And I never stopped being about hip hop since then. But I had a little a hiatus right when DMX came out. But besides that, I've been jacking with all the hip hoppers. I forgot where I referenced that, um but so but in training day, like you see like the you see like a little bit of, or you see really what life is. You see the big picture is that we're all in this, and there's good and bad on any side of anything. But you should really know like what you what you would be willing to experience and not, and what you're willing to do and not before you would get into a situation. So one thing with me is that I'm not willing to lie or put myself in a position that would come about because I lied to someone. That's one thing I wouldn't want to do. Um, but I was so I'll just say that is that I'm not about lying and I'm not out to lie about anything like that. But you can tell where someone is, where some you can tell all you need to know about someone just about wherever their feet are, and probably a little bit about what would make sense about where they are, based on where their feet were, what they're saying, and their demeanor. All that together, you know what someone's about or not. So I'm just saying I am who I am. It is what it is. But I'm not actually out to get over on anybody, but maybe a pretty old lady that wants me to get over on her, like that. That's the only thing I'm trying to get over on is some sexy shit. I'm not wanting to get. I don't give a damn about people. Like my whole life, like someone be like, damn right. So I listened to a person from the street, and he said that one thing that would make you raise an eyebrow as someone undercover is that anyone from a street background that's really savvy from a street background, they've been incarcerated before. So if you meet from someone from a street background and they say they haven't been incarcerated before, they're either lying undercover or that's what Mickey Royal said. He said if someone's from the street but they haven't been incarcerated, they're lying police or what is it? There's one more. So that they're lying about being from the street, they're police or they're snitch. That's what it is. If you're if you're a savvy street person and you're not incarcerated, if you're still currently a street person and you're not incarcerated or in danger of being incarcerated, or you're from a street background but you're saying you have been incarcerated, you're a snitch, you're a police, or you're a liar. All I'll say about myself is that I've experienced like things that feel like incarceration. So I've been to a psych ward before, and I've lost liberty by being in a psych ward, and then I've lost opportunities coming out of that, and I've also lost liberty by being in a training venue and being in a training venue. I have been in a training venue, but I didn't lay my hands on a firearm in the training venue. No, I'm sorry, I didn't employ a firearm. I was issued a firearm, but I wasn't viable long enough to fire the thing. And that's where it got scary too. Like you wonder, like, damn, when you join something, when does it get scary? It gets scary when you're thinking about it, but when you get issued firearms and you got like, imagine like 100 firearms being I don't know if you call it loaded or racked or whatever. You got 100 firearms clicking at one time. You know that you're about. I had a before I ever did that. Someone said that on the face setting is that we're but a mist. Our life is only a mist. That's all we are. Is just but a mist. If you hear 100 of something racking at the same time, you know that you're about a mist like that. You're just a mist like that. But I never fired the thing. But I was there long enough that it felt like losing liberty. And then a lot of my life has been very hard. So like the where I'm making this from, according to King Noble, all of life in Babylon in Western society is actually a different degree of a low security prison. So we're actually in all of us are actually incarcerated all the time. We're in a low security prison. And you think that a low security prison would be safe, but actually it's more dangerous because you can get more your hands on contraband. You can get away with more shit and attempt more shit in low security. So all of life is a low security prison, but a hella dangerous prison for being low security. So everybody actually been incarcerated before, but that I would be in this low security prison the way I am, not banking a lot, not having my own shit a lot, not doing sexy shit a lot, not hurting or intending to hurt, and sometimes being hurt by others. That's the way that I've existed in this incarceration like that, just from my background. So I have been incarcerated in a psych ward, and people would have likely like I did a video on this one, right? Can you imagine? I have a video on here called iRig. I was doing a video talking about iRig because I had been at a coffee shop and I was practicing fretting an instrument without sound. And this brother that actually looked like Santa Claus, he's like, "Hey man, do you know there's something called an iRig? You can turn into your phone and it'll project your sound like that, like an amplifier." And then I was inspired to do that video iRig. Do you know I had the damn people called on me? If you want, check out that. If you're interested, if I'm undercover or not, or you're just interested in anything, I have a video on here about maybe 10 videos back called iRig. Do you know I after I made that video, right? I made that video at about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. No more than an hour or two later, they're coming. They're coming to take me away. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming to take me. They're coming. So it's interesting. When I was accosted after that, I had a male and a female accost me on my very stairs, right? So would that make you raise an eye? Life is some mean ass shit. Nobody wanna help you with nothing, but you got people that go out of your way to help you, right? Like come to meet you. You're on a flight of stairs. They actually ran 5, 6 up the stairs before you got a chance to turn around because they want to help you. But one of them is buff as hell, a man in all white, and one of them is a lady. It's significant that there would be two because wherever two are there, you have established testimony. So if I said the wrong shit in front of them, hey, can we help you? Can we talk to you? We want to ask you some questions. Nah, man, fuck out of here. That's what I told their ass. If I would have said, no, fuck out of here. Fuck you too for saying fuck me by being in my face, and fuck out of here. That's what I told them. That was the only thing I could have told them. If I would have told them anything else, I wouldn't be making this video because there had been two of their jackasses. And with the two of them, you got one of them that can manhandle the shit out of you. And then you got the two of their ass that they can corroborate a convincing story and testimony about the wrong shit you said out of your mouth that you didn't know was a contract and conceded your very liberty like that. And because they're under the auspices of something, they're state sanctioned, but they're not actually peace officers. So they have a broader scope of what they can do and not do and how they can encroach your liberty as you didn't know that you can. So if a lawman were to take away your liberty, you have to do the right wrong shit, but you actually had to know what you're doing. You had to really actually kind of fuck up. You be honest about it. Am I undercover, this and that? Does it matter if I'm undercover? Because I'm not asking nobody no question about nothing. I'm not trying to get up next to nobody, and nobody should be fucking up anyway. So it shouldn't matter if anybody's undercover because you really shouldn't be breaking the law. It's kind of like they say in India, right? One of the things in India that's egregious about infidelity is that if a woman cheats on her husband, it's not only bad that she's breaking the vow that she made in front of, because what is marriage, right? What is the difference between anything? Marriage is something that's recognized in the eyes of who's great, something that has been recognized, right? Now, if a woman is cheating on her husband, she's affronting her higher power and her blessing from her higher power as she understood and she proclaimed with her vows that this person is her blessing, her best blessing in this life. Maybe the best, what greater blessing do you have in this life than your partner who loves you, who is you? So that's, and I'm not saying nobody's right or wrong for whatever they do with their body and their life, and everybody live their best life. But I'm saying, if you chose to be married, and is in old India go, if you chose to be married, you will, because you had to. If you were married, right, but you cheat on your husband, you affronted God and this man who's your husband, but then also too likely your paramour. That's the name for your illicit lover. Your paramour likely isn't putting you up with them and isn't supporting you, or it wouldn't be as fun and kinky. Because then you get enough of somebody, their ass become, you start to know that they're not that necessarily different than your husband. Because a woman is a woman, the body of a woman is the body of a woman, a man is a man, and the habits of a man are the habits of a man. So one man is not better than the other. One man is not better, but you chose this other man. But also, you're going back to your husband. So part of what's egregious about infidelity in India is that one is that you would disrespect and dishonor your husband and your higher power, but then you would further, and then maybe be secretive about that. That's another level of offense. But then you would steal off back to get like resources and support from your husband, which is another form of offense. That's almost like a that's a double quadruple cross that you did right there. But it's similar like when people are being criminals, is that America is criminal. America is a criminal venue. It's a human trafficking venue. But also America, it has it's so what I'm saying is that if If a person doesn't like America, how America is done, you don't have to be stronger than America, but if you would be honest about it and above board about it, you like according to like there's a street person named the Game Spitter. He talks on YouTube. He says that a lot of people when they have firearms like conceal and carry, they'll hide their firearm, right? Like I was talking to a person that sells firearms. I was with a neighbor. I was visiting with a neighbor, and we stopped by a place that sell firearm like that. And I was asking some questions about the person that sell firearm, and I was asking some questions that he appreciated, like the thought process of how I'd asked that. But that whole time I'm talking to him, you didn't know that he was good to go, strapped up like that, the actual salesman, and he had about one of the meanest firearms that you can have as like a small firearm. He had it tucked on him. You didn't know he had it like that. So if he had been like in a venue like in public, and there had been a problem, somebody would have met their maker, but you didn't know your maker could also look like a pushover and a nerd like that. That had been that brother. But according to but he's not actually necessarily street. He feeds the streets the firearms, but he himself is not necessarily street, but he's formidable. But an actual person from a street background like the Game Spitter, he said that the appropriate thing to do it actually not be to conceal the firearm. If you want to win the war, you might win a battle by concealing the firearm, but strategically to win the war is you just be your fucking self and you just show that shit. If you're about firearms and shit, you're actually more good to go shorty is that you just let it be known you're about that shit. Because he said that's what the military, he figures that that's what the military does. They brandish their stuff. They show their stuff at all times. They show their vest. They're not shy about that. They show whatever they're packing. They're not shy about that. They're in the equipment. They're in the street vehicles. They probably have the undercover stuff too, but they're just simply out there like that. So what I'm saying is that if you don't like where you're from, like you don't like the way things are done, like in America, rather than be secretive, rather than victimize people and then be secretive about that, or to sell something and be secretive about that, just come all the way out and say what you want to be about. So you want to move narcotics, right? I'm not saying drugs are the better word than drug is entheogen. Entheogens come from the earth. Good to go like that. I don't have no damn problem with entheogens. The more the merrier. As they're available, I'm about to procure them like that. As I'm comfortable with them like that. Good to go. It just became, oh, this one just became this and that. It's good to go. It's not yet. The FDA, man, the FDA, they're bogus like that. They're feeding that sugary cereal to children. They're feeding that RX to elderly people and regular people and compromising everyone's health. Made the FDA be the first ones to. I'm just saying that, like sometimes you live long enough, right? You'd be like, damn, man, when we were living like this one had been a war hawk, right? Like this one was actually like running the country, right? They were like sending people to war and they were like signing for bombs and stuff like that, right? Or this one was like doing that stuff, right? But we're getting a little bit on now, right now. I can say I just got carded I got carded recently and somebody actually meant business carding me for something, right? But I'm technically past that many like that. I passed that many. I made that many wishes before, right? But like, damn, we're getting on a little bit, right? Like, yeah, but like, yeah, what did happen to them Warhawks, right? What did happen to them generals, right? Like when I was a young man, I was already a young man. When I was a young man, I was thinking about this and that. I was being influenced by this and that. I heard about this and that, but that one had been in general, right? But when I was a young man, that was already back in the day, right? Because that stuff been going on 20 years, right? But there were already some grown ass men by then. They are about middle age back then, right? 20 years, this and that, right? But they're also signing this and that and making people do this and that, right? Hey man, are some of them getting ready to about like kick the bucket like that, right? You know, you figure right, they're getting older, right? Get the bucket, right, man? Are some of these people getting ready to? But they gotta go up and the elevator only go up and down, right? No, if an elevator is stuck standing still, that's kind of strange. That's kind of scary, right? But more so, elevator don't stay stand still very long. It gotta go up and down, right? So are some of these fools getting ready to kick the bucket, right? Are some of the the war hockey, are they ready to go? Are they about to go, like, are they full about to go straight to hell like that right now? Because, yeah, you knew their ass were going to, back in the day, right? You knew they were killer shit, right? They had all the mannerism when they talk. They let you know they had been a killer and shit, right? When the general talking to shit, right? He wasn't too shy about that he'd been the killer shit, right? That the general, right? But don't somebody got to pay up what they weigh up at one point? So you've been killing this, right? All dogs go to heaven, but I never heard him say all killers go to heaven. And they about to kick the one. They gotta kick the bucket by one at this point, right? And they would have to. So damn, we're about to hear about some fool that went to burn. Like, you know what I'm saying? The backhammon with the I mean the backhammon with them boy like that down there with that hot like that, right? It about to be like that. So figure, right? So about the FDA about to go to hell by now. The FDA that has sold the RX like that, and some of them FBA board about to go to hell by now. But even if you had some cool shit for me that hadn't been FDA certified, I say good to go like that. The more the merrier. But I still say if you're about moving shit, not to be egregious or to be flexing, but I think that would be better than being secretive about it, would to just be honest. Right there. We would like to have this lifestyle. Mr. President, we would be more economically viable if we could be ourselves without hiding stuff. And you also are rotten because your country is a human trafficking venue and you're not honest. So I'm saying is that I'm not saying that nobody have I'm not telling nobody what to be, because in this channel I don't offer advice. Advice is like is corrupt. I'm just offering my experience of truth. But what I'm saying is that part of being outside of the law would be better if it was organized and it was more and more above board, because then you would actually have political traction. And some of the very people that also don't like things about the state apparatus or about what the state does to people or what it makes them do to people, they may actually begin to support you little by little. So you say now you have cannabis is legal, right? Cannabis now is legal. We can enjoy cannabis. Thank heaven, thank God, thank cannabis is legal now, right? But part of the way that cannabis is legal now is that back in the day, like the last 20, 30 years, different hip hop artists, they would be letting it be known, hey, yeah, man, I like to smoke weed and shit, right? That shit hadn't been legal back then. Like all Ice Cream Man, I'm just saying, like, for example, like that you had the Ice Cream Man album, right? That's talking about different stuff, but also like, yeah, cause real like your Johnson, hey man, it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got nothing to do. Pass me some, I need some with my Hennessy. Pass me. So they were being honest. It wasn't yet legal, but they were being honest. Yeah, we like the green shit like that. It's illegal, but we like it. And we're not afraid to put it in an album. Even as we know, sometimes people that don't really belong yet with that lifestyle may procure the album. Like the guy I have been listening to Ice Cube since 90 this and that. It might be known to anyone that we like the green stuff like that, as it had not been legal then. So I'm saying that one of the blessings that we have now as cannabis is legal, it's because some people were bold enough to show their face, because you're actually kind of showing your ass back then. I don't know how they did that with like the laws, like how they were able to actually confess and concede crimes in their raps. That actually begs a difference. Not only would you ask, is someone undercover, but are these rappers undercover if they're able to concede crimes in front of broad mainstream society the world over? They're able to sing concerts about breaking the law, even if it's cannabis, back when cannabis was illegal. It's interesting how they could do that, but they actually got the support. I think that's an example of how they got the support to do that, because different people on the inside of the law, even some of the children, like I think that actually Tupac himself, like sometimes you know how people got their break and how they were presented. So I'm showing up like this, right? I'm showing up on this camera, this and that, say this and that. Who is this fool? What's that fool about? Where they come from like that? I'm not even saying I'm great enough to raise that question, like, because I'm not saying that I have been great like that, but just who is that fool? What's their background? What prompted them? But also what supports them? But Tupac himself, the homie Tupac, I think he had been an artist. He had some traction, like him and Jada Pinkett went to the same art school, and he might have had some traction in the arts. But there had been a record executive. I'm not sure what label it was. He had a daughter, like a young woman, not even, I don't know if she was an adult, a very young girl, like a valley girl, so to speak, a young girl, Caucasian, was like, hey, I kind of like that guy. And her dad was like a real that's a real music exec mogul. They want to know what's hot, even if it's their own child that shows them that was hot. That's what they want. They want what's hot. And normally the young people got their pulse on it. A young person can pick out a winner like that. Apparently a young Caucasian girl, maybe still school age, can pick out Tupac out of a lineup. You give a lineup of them to a little, because they like cool shit. They like hot shit. They got the if. They don't take a rocket scientist to see the if factor, but it do take someone savvy. This little girl, you give a lineup of them. There probably been a lot of people taking their shots at her dad. A lot of artists. You give them a lineup of them, or maybe a little demo. Yeah, that's the one right there. I think that's the one, Daddy. I think that's the next Tupac, Daddy. That's him right there. Yep, that's him. There go. Now we have Tupac. All eyes on me. Hail Mary to one to me. Ah, do you want to ride or die? Da, 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 da. You didn't know that there had been a little girl put him up to that, put you up to listen to that. You didn't know that one, but that's how he got his start. But all I'm saying is that so you don't know like the actual interest, but things don't change is what I'm saying until people on the inside, according to Chris Hedges, like if you have an actual protest, so you have a protest, and then you have the protest and the counter protest. Like there's a thing like Osho was talking about. Like there's a story about how like someone is at a communist rally. It's a joke, but like someone's at a communist rally, and they're getting into trouble with the security guard, and the security guard's like, "No communist part past this point," and they're like, "No, no, you don't understand. I'm an anti-communist. I don't care what kind of communists are. No communist past this point." But you would think that like when you're at a rally like that, a standoff between people protesting and them laws like that, that the law people, the people there to break up the riot with the protest, you think that they're there to break up the protest or that it's not working because they're there. No, that's actually the best protest is that if it had been a real effective protest, the actual communication and exchange of ideas and influence between the protesters and the very people that would be sent out against them. That's the first victory of the protest because once you win over someone from that side to see your cause, to see the truth that is, not to see your cause, but to see the truth. When you get two people from different sides of anything, street anything, grassroots anything, state anything, no one, everyone is bogus on different levels, and everyone is viable on different levels, and everyone is connected on different levels. When you get people across the aisle to see together, that's what changes. So I'm saying is that if some like, and that's part of how we got to where we're at now is that, so you got Tupac. I think that Tupac, he may have had he had some messages that may not have been in the best interest of our people, but he also showed you what it means to have a heart while in the streets. Tupac showed us what heart looks like. We wouldn't necessarily known that what heart looks like if we hadn't been shown that for Tupac. Brenda's Got a Baby, Dear Mama, and even some of the things like I Get Around. I Get Around is so fun as to also have a lot of heart. I Get Around. Like I was listening to like a deep person, like some kind of music exec or someone, and I think it was on one of the Tupac documentaries. He's like, yeah, man, I had heard Tupac around the Digital Underground because he got, I think that's what it was. I think Tupac, he was in the Digital Underground and that girl put him on after that, or she had something to do with him getting on the Digital Underground. It was one of the two. Either there was a girl there's a girl that I think the girl peeped. So that girl, that Caucasian girl wasn't Tupac's break. His break was the Digital Underground, I think. But the digital, and it had this dude that had this thing on his nose like that. But that girl, she saw that Digital Underground thing, and then that what inspired, that what got Tupac his look as a solo artist. And I don't know when Tupac brought Thug Life on, if he came from Thug Life or if he brought them with him, like, hey man, can my friends come too? Something like that. But Thug Life was also part of a group, and Tupac was also that. So Tupac is not only Tupac, he's also the group Thug Life, because he was with that group. That was the first Tupac I ever heard was Thug Life. That song Pour Out a Little Liquor off the Above the Rim soundtrack, that's technically a group song. That's the Thug Life. But um but I'm just saying is that that's actually what change looked like, is like when the least likely person, the daughter of an executive, the father of an executive, the wife of an executive, the husband of an executive, the husband of a lawyer, the lawyer husband of an executive, anything. People that are from a different walk of life, a different cloth, that may be with the state or with the street, but they see the truth in you. That's what changes. That's what beauty is. And so I'm saying is that like as the question of justice or not justice, undercover or not, I just think that a person should just be honest and upfront. I'm saying I am who I am, and my feet are where they are, and I believe in justice. I would rather see somebody that is hurting people um fall than somebody who is not hurting people. But I also am not willing to lie. I'm not willing to lie because I don't want to experience what comes with that, and I don't want to be compromised by that. Because there's nothing worse than when you get caught in a lie, and them people, them boys